So I ran down to the hardware store and grabbed several pieces of brick molding. My first step in creating my floor-to-ceiling headboard wall was to figure out my spacing. I used the existing small headboard as a guide, and I placed 2 of the brick molds on either side. I secured these in place using just painter's tape for now so that I could step back and make sure that they looked the way I wanted them to. Once that was done, I moved things out of the way and then I secured the brick molding using a nail gun. Now that those outer edges were in place, the next step was to figure out the center pieces. I took a good amount of time making sure that everything was evenly spaced. Once I was happy with the way that looked, I secured that in place using the nail gun as well. I used caulking and ran it down the side of the brick molding. This way, everything would look nice and finished and uniform. Once that was dry, I was able to add my paint. I applied several coats of white paint so that everything would look like it was one continuous piece. Once the several coats of paint were dry, I went ahead and moved the furniture back into the room, made the beds, and got to work on decorating. I thought it looked great, brightened up the room, gave it a little bit of visual interest, defined the theme of the area, and it really didn't cost very much at all.
And now, a word from today's sponsor.
Just like DIY projects, life can throw unexpected challenges our way, making it hard to find peace and move towards our goals.
But what if there was a place where you could find help, guidance, and understanding? Introducing today's sponsor, BetterHelp, an online therapy platform designed to break barriers between you and a happier, healthier life. Sometimes finding the right therapist nearby can be challenging. With BetterHelp, you can connect with over 30,000 licensed therapists from the comfort of your home. Whether it's a phone call, video chat, or messaging, BetterHelp offers therapy in a way that suits you best.
If you think you could benefit from therapy, consider BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/hometalk.
Starting therapy might feel daunting, but with BetterHelp, you'll be matched with a therapist in most cases as little as 48 hours. You can choose the time that works for you because taking care of your mental health should be on your terms. And if you don't feel the connection, don't worry. Switching therapists is as simple as clicking a button in your settings. We invest time in our homes, hobbies, and bodies. Why not give our minds the same care?
Visit betterhelp.com/hometalk for 10% off your first month to connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. Now, back to the DIY.
I wanted to update this condo bedroom on a budget and in one day. I love the way picture frame moldings look, and I started by taping off a general idea of where molding would go and what the picture frame boxes would look like. I wanted mitered corners, so I set the saw at a 45-degree angle and started cutting my pieces. When I cut the corresponding pieces, like the 2 sides or the top and bottom, I stacked the pieces together and cut them together so that their sizes were truly identical. I had marked the wall with a pencil where my pieces needed to go, so the next step was to apply my adhesive on the back side of the molding and attach it to the wall, using a level to make sure that everything was straight. I would recommend not adding too much adhesive so that it doesn't get all over the wall when you end up pushing the molding onto the wall itself. I did have a spot where I had to go around an outlet. In this area, I just made straight cuts at the top and bottom of the outlet area. I also made sure that my mitered corners were as tight as possible, and they really did go together very well, and any small gap was filled with some caulking in the next step. I started caulking the places where the molding met the wall to cover up that small gap and give it a professional finish. I caulked it on the inside and outside of all of the picture frame sections. Sometimes the caulking goes on perfectly smoothly, but sometimes it just doesn't. Either way, all I did was run my finger along the area to smooth down the caulking. Once I had the molding in place, it was ready for paint. We ended up with this dark gray with a bit of purple undertone. I used a Wagner paint sprayer that I had received from another project, and I was able to get this wall painted incredibly fast as a result. In this room, I also replaced the flooring and added nice big baseboards. And here's the result. I love the way the furniture sits in relation to the picture frame molding, and I love the way the accent wall makes the room look. Most of all, I love that I did it myself and that it cost under $50. I hope that this inspired you to create an accent wall of your own. I wanted to add some character to this plain and boring wall, so I decided to try my hand at a board and batten wall feature. I couldn't believe how quick and easy it was. The first thing I did was to measure my wall and cut a 1x4 board to size. I cut the horizontal board first and set that in place, using a level to make sure that it was level. That way, I could measure and cut the vertical boards to the exact length that I needed them to be. If I had cut my vertical boards first and then added the horizontal piece on top afterward, then I might have more gaps between my wood-to-wood sections, since they likely wouldn't line up exactly 100%. When adding the vertical boards, I started with the two end pieces, so that way I had essentially created a frame on my wall. From there, I needed to determine where I was going to place the other vertical pieces. I measured the wall so that I could space the boards out evenly. Once I had all the wood secured to the wall using the nail gun, I could see it starting to come together. The next step was to cover the gaps between the wood and the wall. Using some caulking and running it along all the spaces between the wood and wall gets rid of these and covers up the gaps and gives a great professional looking finish. The next step is to start painting. I've seen some beautiful board and batten walls of all different colors, but for this room I wanted to stick with white because it's a pretty dark room with no overhead lights. I just needed to incorporate all the lightness that I could into here. I gave the wall 3 coats of white paint, and then I was able to add in my room decorations. This was an extremely easy project that can have a really big impact on a space, so I hope you'll give it a try. I hope this inspired you to feel confident and make a change on a wall in your home. Thanks for watching Home Talk, and see you next time. I wanted to create a cool accent wall in a bedroom without spending too much money or taking too much time. So I headed to the hardware store and picked up some 1x4s. I used the ones that are least expensive over in the lumber section, not in the molding section. When I got back to the condo I was renovating, I measured the width of the board. Even though they're 1x4s, they're actually closer to 3.5 inch in width. I measured the wall and marked out where my boards would go on the wall so that it would create a nice symmetrical pattern. I had to remember to calculate for the entire width of the board so that my calculations would work out correctly. I made sure it was level and then used a nail gun to attach the boards vertically to the wall. I secured all of my vertical boards in place along the wall. Now I could measure down for the horizontal boards. Remember again when measuring to account for the width of the board. Then I cut the horizontal boards and attached them. The next time I take on this project, I'll cut my boards a bit longer and make sure they fit very snugly in place. This will help later on. You can see in some of these connections I have a little bit of a gap, which is a little bit larger than I would have liked going forward. When it came to the outlet, I cut the board around the outlet area and left plenty of space around it so that I wouldn't have any problem plugging things in the future. Once all the boards are in place, I needed to close up the gaps in my wood pieces so that it looks like one beautiful continuous built-in. First, I caulked the inside edges of my newly formed accent wall boxes. This keeps the wall from having any gaps showing between the wood and the wall. I also had to work on making the horizontal pieces look like they fit seamlessly with the vertical ones. To do this, I used caulking and filled in the spaces. Once this dried, I sanded down the joints. Once everything was sanded down, I was able to start the fun part. I picked out a blue color that I thought would look soothing in the room. I actually mixed 2 leftover paint colors that I had left over from another project, so I didn't spend any money in paint. I mixed a dark blue called Tempe Star with a lighter gray color, and I was really happy with the result. Painting took the longest time in the project. I didn't use a roller because I wanted to make sure to get in all of the crevices with the brush. As I painted it, I could see the gaps and the imperfections disappear, and I could see the wall starting to come together. After painting, I reassessed the wall and found trouble spots that I wanted to address. In these areas, I caulked again and sanded them again. Once I painted those spots once more, they looked fantastic. We finished the new flooring, added the baseboards, and moved furniture into the room. I set up the curtains, and the room was now ready. Here's how it turned out. The entire project took me 1 weekend to do, and it only cost me $30. That was the cost of the wood, since I didn't have to pay for the paint, since it's something that I reused from a previous project. If you have damaged walls like I did, this budget-friendly repair requires no drywall skills whatsoever. I started with this bathroom that had mosaic tile stuck on the wall as decorative elements. It just wasn't the style that I was looking for, but removing them and removing the old towel bar caused damage to the wall. In order to cover it up and also to give the bathroom the look that I was looking for, I ran down to the hardware store and picked up 2 sheets of beadboard. Then I measured and cut the beadboard down to size using a table saw. I attached it to the wall with my nail gun. It took no time at all. Since the beadboard is 4 feet wide, but my wall is longer than this, I needed to cut my second sheet and line it up next to the first. The next step was to add a wood border to the top. I used very inexpensive common board, and the size I used was 1x8. I measured the length I needed and cut it to size. Then I painted the top of it before attaching it to the wall. This way I didn't have to paint the top when it was in place, because I'd surely end up painting the wall accidentally if I tried that. When I attached the board, there was a small gap between the wood and beadboard, but it was easy to fill this gap using paintable caulking. Once that dried, I got started with painting. Here, you could really change the look of your room by painting the entire thing a dark gray or even black to make it look modern, or a bright blue for a nautical or coastal look, but I stuck with white for this particular bathroom. In order to finish off my beadboard accent, I added hooks. After that, I added my towels and a new shower curtain, and my quick little bathroom upgrade was complete. I really like the way it looks, and I'm glad I was able to remove the old mosaic tile on the wall without having to patch drywall or call someone in to make repairs. I hope this inspired you to update a wall in your room with a style that you love.